Right here, we're bringing you reports on products that are made right here in Kentuckiana. And tonight, it's something you may see on the road every day and not even know it. WHAS 11's Kelsey Starks takes us to Kentucky Trailer.
The company began in 1879 as a wagon manufacturer and has changed with the times. In 1936, Kentucky Wagon became Kentucky Trailer, and trailers have come a long way since then. Fast forward to 2011, these trailers aren't hauling buggies anymore. They're souped up, tricked out mobile units, custom made for everyone from the FBI to celebrities like Will Smith and Patrick Dempsey.
But that's the type of unique product that Kentucky does. The roof of the trailer really moves up to have a second floor. You've seen the Will Smith trailer. He had a recording studio in there and a living quarters, and that's what we do. Tell us your need, we develop a solution.
They put the custom in customer because each one of these massive pieces of machinery is custom built, mostly by hand.
So while there's a great deal of automation to the process, these are hand-built trailers.
While competitors are rolling off trailers in a matter of days, it takes a custom order at Kentucky Trailer anywhere from 2 weeks to 3 months to make it through this specific process.
It's a difficult process. It's not quick. It requires customization. It requires extra engineering. It's tedious. It takes exacting practices. We want to do that. We do this by choice.
It's the niche market they found that keeps them growing. 2 years ago, they moved from their location on South 3rd Street to this massive operation in the industrial part of Southwest Louisville. It's a high-tech assembly line of sorts. The trailers moved down the line by hovercraft. Yeah, just like in Back to the Future, air pressure allows them to be pushed or pulled down the line.
And amazingly, I can even push it by myself because of the power of this thing. Pushing a semi by myself. There you go.
And that's not all that's state-of-the-art. From the floors to the paint job, it's the future of moving. On the move for 100 years now and ready to move for 100 more. Kelsey Starks, WHAS 11 News.
And don't forget, we'd like to hear your ideas for our next Made in Kentuckiana report right here. Send your ideas to Kelsey. Her email address is kstarks@whas11.com.
The Maker's Mark Distillery sits in the middle of rolling Kentucky hills, far off the beaten path in the small town of Loretto, Kentucky. Its history is also off the beaten path.
My grandfather, as a craftsman, had a vision to do things very differently.
Different it was, and different it remains today. It started with Rob Samuel's grandfather, Bill Samuel Sr., who bought the historic distillery in the 1950s and vowed to make something unique.
All a Maker's Mark that you've seen all over the world, it all comes from right in here. And we'll go in and I'll kind of show you the process from the grains to the distilling.
The process is painstaking. First, the grains are selected just from the best of the best, all local corn and red winter wheat instead of rye that's used in other bourbons. It's carefully crushed and then cooked. And then it's on to 3 days of fermenting, the all-natural process that converts sugar into alcohol.
This is kind of the old-time way of making whiskey. These are some of these fermenters, the staves are over 100 years old.
The alcohol is pushed out as steam and then converted to this liquid. And then comes the real waiting process. It goes inside a unique barrel made of Kentucky oak where it ages for 5 to 7 years.
It sits at the top of the warehouse for 3 good Kentucky summers, 3 hot summers. Then we taste it, see if it's ready to be rotated toward the bottom. It sits toward the bottom for about 3 more years. Then we taste it, see if it's ready to be bottled. All Maker's Mark, it's all bottled by taste, not age.
Meanwhile, thousands of bottles are filling up every day of the bourbon that's already been aged to perfection. It's a bottle designed by Marjorie Samuels, Bill Samuel Sr.'s wife, who also designed that famous label. So that's still printed on the very same printing press.
The bottles, once they're filled, go through this process for labeling, go down the line where they're capped, and then, of course, get that signature red wax dip.
It was my grandmother who suggested that each and every bottle be finished by dipping by hand in red sealing wax. And that way she suggested that since each bottle was sealed by hand, that each would be a little different and distinct from the next, which is the mark of a handmade piece.
The maker's mark, if you will. The name came from Old English craftsmen who always left the mark of the maker. Each bottle of Maker's Mark has its mark, too. An S for the Samuels family name, a star for the Star Hill Farm. That's the first farm settled by the family in the 1700s. It's here and only here that real Maker's Mark can be made. It uses soft, iron-free spring water found only in Kentucky. Corn is Kentucky's native grain, and that's what bourbon has in it more than anything else. And even the oak to make the barrels comes from Kentucky trees. Those barrels age best in Kentucky's climate, hot, humid summers and intensely cold winters. Rob Samuels will tell you it isn't the most efficient process in the bourbon industry, but it's exactly what bourbon drinkers love about Maker's Mark.
We've been able to manage growth in a way never to waver from our founder's vision. So everything's produced exactly as it was in the very beginning, to what makes us unique and what our consumers cherish about Maker's Mark.
An old-fashioned formula, as Maker's makes its mark on the future. For Made in Kentuckiana, Kelsey Starks, WHAS 11 News. In the small town of Heltonville, Indiana, in Lawrence County, sits an unassuming building down a narrow drive, but inside is the last of its kind.
We are the only United States manufacturing company in dolls that's left.
Stick it in here.
Virginia Turner makes dolls, lots of them, but not as many as she used to. This factory that once turned out 500 of every new doll is now lucky to get 50 sold. And you heard right, Turner Dolls is the last doll manufacturer left in the United States.
There's dolls being made in China, and they're so much less money than what we can afford to do them for. So actually, though, we have seen an increase in sales in the last 3 months, and a lot of it's because they want made in the USA.
About 500 degrees.
Virginia's brother, Charlie, pours vinyl into these molds, each sculpted by Virginia herself. They're melted to the mold and then cooled.
And there you got it.
One of the advantages of making these dolls here is that they have all of these molds here, so they can see what kind of dolls are popular, make more of them if needed, and less of them if they're not.
Virginia paints each doll's face herself with diluted automotive paint that's used for vinyl interiors to give them that lifelike appearance.
But you gotta just kind of move them around.
Each of the doll's eyes are put on by these hands.
There's your little baby.
Their bodies are stuffed and limbs assembled. Even the doll's clothes are cut and sewn here by hand. But in real life, the doll business is facing a harsh reality.
Made in the USA is wonderful, but you just can't compete. We cannot compete with materials, labor, or anything else. We have to really think if we can afford to go on.
Virginia has been in the doll business since the 1980s. She started sculpting her own molds in 1989, and that's the same time a very famous doll was born. The American Girl doll, the doll that teaches young girls about different periods in American history, is now made in China.
Every girl in the United States, I think, has got an American Girl. Well, they were made out in the East Coast for a while, but then they were sold to Mattel, and they're all made in China now, too. So it's sad. It's sad what's happening, but it's just the way it is, you know.
The American Girl's creator sold the company to Mattel in 1998 for $700 million. Virginia says even if she could make money like that, she probably wouldn't do it.
I'm not going to give my molds or my sculpts to anybody but us. I just want to keep them here in Indiana, and so far, some way we've managed to stay in. Making dolls is just a lot of fun.
In fact, some of the baby dolls they make here at a loss, so real American girls can have a doll made in the USA to call their own. Kelsey Starks, WHAS 11 News.
You know, you don't have to look very far to find a little disco everywhere. We didn't. We found this in our basement here at WHAS, a prop from an old show. The disco ball may be a sign of an era long gone, but we found a place in Louisville where it's alive and well. It was the age of bell bottoms, polyester, and disco.
Those were the days, yeah.
Yolanda Baker remembers it well.
There was always music. Yeah, always music. The girls liked their music. They liked to work to the music.
The year was 1968 when she started working at Omega National Products on Baxter Avenue, making disco balls. 30 girls spent their days feverishly gluing pieces of mirror, turning out about 100,000 shiny globes a year at the height of the disco craze.
England started them in the late 1800s. They were really big in the speakeasies and all that kind of stuff during Prohibition. And then we actually didn't start making those until the 50s.
The disco started burning up dance floors in the 1970s, and Omega National Products was burning up the sales, producing 90% of all the disco balls in the world, generating about $1 million a year. And then the music stopped. Yolanda is one of just 6 people in the manufacturing building now.
It's really disappointing because, you know, I had such, you know, so many people working with me, and just seeing all these balls go out the door, and, you know, just I miss all the people, really.
The demand may have dropped, but disco, it's still alive and well here in Louisville, and disco balls are just a fraction of what this company's making now.
The company, though, is staying alive, still using mirrors to make magic, just in other ways.
They're going into a lot of hotels. The W hotels have them. The Knickerbocker Hotel in Chicago has them as headboards. You know, I mean, it's just, that is a phenomenal product. Coach Purses has those mirrors in their display cases. Bebe Shop does.
It's a new look for an old product, a way to keep this business boogieing, and it's working. They still make about 20 disco balls a month, and you may have seen them on stage with Madonna, Kid Rock, or even hanging from the top of Madison Square Garden.
Those are luxury items. These are niche products that we manufacture. And I just think it's wonderful that we can still hang on to our business and be able to compete.
A business surviving and thriving, and they're still having a ball.
We'll just keep on making disco balls forever and ever. I'm serious. I'm serious. I don't think it'll ever stop.
Kelsey Starks, WHAS 11 News.